Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we simplify the complexities of your leadership journey. My name is Mo, and I'll be sitting in the host chair today. Today's guest is Peter Roisman, the president and CEO of Leasing, a disruptor in the commercial equipment leasing industry with a background in law and a track record of executive leadership in diverse sectors ranging from leasing and financial services to technology and innovation. Peter brings decades of wisdom about what it means to lead in evolving and often volatile industries. He's a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, and Villanova Law, and he's held leadership roles in numerous companies, including his own successful ventures. Today, we're going to dive deep and find out what Peter has to say about his leadership philosophy and how it shaped his career, his company, and the people around him. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mo. Happy to be here.
Peter, why don't you tell my audience a little bit about yourself, your background, where you came from, and how you found yourself where you are today?
Sure. I'll try to do it in an elevator pitch, but it may not come out that way. But
Love it.
I'm from New England, was some sort of an athlete growing up, played college sports, thought about playing professional golf as a career, realized that, even though I was a scratch golfer and had won a college tournament and was all New England, that wasn't good enough, not nearly good enough. And I was in Florida playing in a tournament, and 15-year-old was 8 under through 16 holes, and I think I was 1 under, and I said, I think I'm in the wrong business, but I think I can represent these people. So I ended up going to law school. I had reserved a spot in law school, and started a sports law group when I got there, joined the National Sports Lawyers Association, and they made a whole career out of representing athletes and coaches for about more than 15 years, between 15 and 20 years. Then from there, I developed surgery centers across 6 states, and I did that 10 years. And since then, I've stayed in real estate, and been heavily involved in the multifamily aspect of real estate, with a real focus on leasing and leasing training, and that's where a lot of leadership comes in right there. And so, I'm a developer, but I'm also helping to build this property technology company that we have in Houston called Rev.
Very cool. Peter, you've had such a diverse professional journey from practicing law to almost becoming a pro golfer to leading Rev Leasing. So, how has your background shaped your leadership style on that journey?
Well, I can tell you, the entrepreneurial spirit means you really have to have leadership, because, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, you're in charge. You're in charge of everything. So if you don't make it happen, it's not going to happen. And you have to build a team around you that's going to help it get done. And you're only as good as the people around you. And that's been true, in politics as well. You watch the best presidents in my lifetime have been people that have put great people around them. They haven't necessarily been the smartest or the most intellectual, or even, they display great leadership, right? That's the key. But they also attract great talent and loyalty among their people. So, I could point out a couple by name, but, I'm not a political guy, so I'm not going to have people on both parties anyway that represent kind of the epitome of leadership and building a great team.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, Peter. I've always said that I'm not trying to be the smartest person in the room. I'm trying to get the smartest people around me in the room as a leader. How have you seen that in the journey? How do you attract the best people? And then how do you lead them, a cohort of people who have such great talents?
Yeah, and I've been involved in different organizations where we've had really successful leadership teams, and I've had a couple of situations where those teams haven't turned out the way they wanted, and they had to be restructured and restarted. I think leadership is honesty, it's vision, it's a lot of things, but it's things that your team can count on, right? The team has to be able to rely on the leader. The leader has to be able to say something, and people have to believe it, right? And that always takes me back to the saying, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right.
Love it.
It seems to me, yeah, I've seen a lot of situations where really great ideas didn't turn into really great businesses. And I've seen really average ideas turn into amazing businesses. And that's pretty much because of leadership. right? A team can get a lot done based on really high performance and really, achieve a lot. And then really probably some of the great ideas in the world have not turned into great businesses because of having the wrong leadership team.
Yeah, I'd love to stay on that topic and talk a little bit about Rev Leasing. And Rev Leasing brands itself as transparent and customer first, which don't sound to me like two values that are very common in a lot of financial service spaces. What leadership decisions were essential to building a values based company culture?
I think you have to build something that the market wants. You have to be great at listening to the market, right? So the success I've seen in building products or services in any market are understanding the customer's needs and delivering a product or service that suits those needs at an affordable or acceptable price. And it has to be reliable, and it has to be something that adds value to the customer's situation, be it a business or a personal situation. And so, in our particular case with Rev Leasing, we're only focused on the multifamily, which is the apartment world. And 1 out of every 3 Americans lives in an apartment. So it's quite a large marketplace.
Hmm.
And so, you know, we're taking on, we started out as a human capital business, and we were doing pretty well as that. We had like 90 people out there leasing for us. And we realized that we just couldn't be a national company. And we said, listen, let's take what we've learned, let's take our knowledge, let's take our leadership, and let's build products that we can give to our customers, our clients, and let them use these products to get better, to make their people better. Because we were going on site and fixing situations and then leaving. And then within a number of months, the situation would go back to the same situation it was in before we got there. So we figured, listen, let's create some sort of a subscription type based model where they can always use this, keep continually train up to get better. We can assess them because we have both the training side and the assessment side. And it can become part of the everyday, you know, leasing operations in a business in the multifamily world. So, there's a lot of need there, I think, and there hasn't been a lot of focus on revenue generation. So a lot of
Hmm.
the focus for the last 2 or 3 years in most businesses, but particularly in multifamily, because that's what we've been looking at, has been on cost segregation, cost consolidation, cost savings everywhere you can. How do we make this operation leaner and meaner? That's great. I am not suggesting that it's any way the wrong thing to do, but it's wrong when it's to the exclusion of not looking at revenue generation, improving your revenue generation. And so they're not mutually exclusive. You can do both. You can cut costs and gain revenues at the same time. In fact, we found that our clients, when they do better at leasing, they're not advertising as often. They are not using locators to bring tenants
Hmm.
to them. They are not giving concessions as much. They're getting better rental rates. I mean, they have better resident retention, so the turnover isn't that great. All of those things are cost savings,
Right.
and that's just from generating better revenues. And so they're not mutually exclusive; they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think in some of the interviews that I've listened to you give, you aim to simplify what's often seen as a dark art in the leasing world. And so, what leadership habits have helped you gain trust and clarity in a somewhat opaque, non transparent industry?
Yeah, that's a great look. I think at this point, the multifamily world is very well developed. It's been around for a long time. It's shifted from owner managed to third party managed. I mean, it's right now almost 50-50. It's actually 51% third party managed now versus owner managed. So it's actually crossed the threshold to having more people who don't own the properties managing them than do own
Hmm.
the property. So that means the bottom line is going to suffer somewhat because the third party managers, I'm not saying they don't care about the bottom line, but it's not as bottom line driven as an owner managed property is because those dollars go directly to that owner. And so if you think about it, the leasing position turns over more than 2 times a year. in the industry. It's a very volatile, constantly turning over position. It's not a stable position. That instability is something we attack. We go to our clients and we talk about this all the time. If they can stabilize that position, now think about the leasing person. The leasing person is almost always the first person you meet on property. You walk into the office,
Yeah.
the leasing person greets you. Okay. You might have bumped into the maintenance guy outside, but but the likelihood is the first person you meet is that leasing person. So that's setting the tone. So that person shouldn't be a turnover position. It should be someone stabilized, someone that represents you and your company and that particular property really well. And so when someone is good at this position, it's such an unstable position for a reason. If you're really good at leasing, you know what happens within this industry typically right now? You get promoted, but you get promoted out of leasing. You get promoted to an assistant manager or manager's job. And typically you're stuck behind a computer and you're not using those great people skills that you developed and that are on your side. And now you're expected to know numbers. And those two aren't necessarily hand in hand. And so we recommend to our clients that they create a pathway, kind of a silo within leasing. So if you achieve a certain level of proficiency in leasing, you can move to a manager's job, then maybe a director's job, and move up in leasing. So make a career of it. And then your best leasing people aren't moving out, they're moving up.
Yeah, so I mean, you actually get to see them. You see the trajectory of their growth as a person, and as a manager, and as a leader. That I love it. So, Peter, as a leader, how do you manage complexity? Because there's a lot of complexity in what you just said, but you obviously have found a way to stay people focused in a business that involves so much technical influence, a lot of financial nuance. What do you do to stay grounded?
You know, I always feel like if you can communicate clearly and if you can even do it concisely, you're way ahead. So we have to keep a really clean message, right? It's really important. Leasing is an art and a science. It's both. You have to have a skill set and you got to have the know-how that when you're doing it, it feels natural because you're trained in it, right? When you're really good at something like golf or basketball or whatever, if you shoot 1,000 free throws a day, you're going to be a good free throw shooter. Okay. If you're a swimmer, if you swim, I don't know, swim 50 laps a day, you're going to develop that stroke, whichever one you're doing. It's
Right.
literal. It's focusing on the right things and doing repetitions. And then when you don't perform exactly the way you want, you get some level of correction and you repeat those repetitions. And that's really, it's a lot like sports. It's like any skill set you develop. You have to get good advice and you have to repeat it. And that builds confidence. And then the whole confidence part of this factors in because people who are confident are going to achieve more.
Yeah, and you and I were talking right before we got on, and I've been a swimmer and I've been a coach in the industry for the past 30 something years. You obviously were a multi-sport athlete, and so we really kind of talked a little bit about that, and you'll be able to resonate with this. I was told by some of the best mentors, Mo, here it is. Coaching, you got to be simple and you got to be concise. And think of it this way, Mo, if you can't teach it to an 8-year-old, you're making it too complex. And I feel like that is anything in life, whether you are talking to a sports team of 8-year-olds or 18-year-olds, or if you're talking to a staff within your leasing company, it's to keep the message simple.
Absolutely right. And we have 130 leasing courses, but I can sum it up for you in 3 areas, right? So if you're going to be a great leasing person, there's a thing called discovery. Okay, that's the first thing you do. You get to know the desires of the person, the desires and the background of the person you're talking to, right? If you can't discover those things, you're going to fail on the next step, which is benefit selling, right? Benefit leasing. If at the end of the day, if you don't know what this person needs and wants, it's really hard for you to make the right suggestions and move them towards, hey, you're going to
Right.
work from Well, there's high speed internet here. There's a great workstation within your property. You can want to go sit in an open lobby. There are a lot of people that work in there every day. I mean, literally, if you know what people want, let's say someone's a swimmer. Hey, we happen to have an Olympic sized swimming pool here. Whatever it is, you move from discovery to benefit selling. If you do those two things well, you're set up to do the final thing. And there's many things in between, but we'll jump forward. That's moving to closure, right? From that point, you
Yeah.
can start everything you do could be directing towards getting the person to become a resident. And so
Yeah.
clearly communicating, and to an 8-year-old's a great visual. That's just a perfect visual. If you can communicate it on an 8-year-old level, you're going to win.
Peter, can you share a pivotal leadership moment in your own life where a failure or a setback taught you something crucial about leading others?
Yes. Okay. So I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier. I've been involved in some very successful businesses, and I've had one particular failure that should have been a grand slam home run. It wasn't. It was a failure of leadership. I was a high up executive in this company and an investor in the company, and the CEO of the company had offers to sell. We had one of these great ideas, and I'll just throw it out there. It was an options marketplace for the right to attend sporting events and live events. So let's say you're a fan of, I don't know, University of Texas. You can pick
Hmm.
any school, Houston, University of Texas. And yeah, you want to go to one of the big bowl games when they're in it. But you don't necessarily want to go to every single bowl games. Let's say you want to go to the national championship game. You could under this company buy an option at the beginning of the season on your team in that game. And if your team
Huh.
plays in it, you get to buy it. You get to use that option to convert the right to purchase a face value ticket for that game. And it was backed up by inventory, so there were tickets behind it. The options were covered options, so we would go and make deals with the NCAA for the Final Four, Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL, NBA, some soccer leagues. I mean, so we had all these covered options. So, for instance, when NCAA basketball, there's like 325 teams. So 4 teams play in the Final Four. So if we had, I think we had 1,000 tickets to the game. So we could divide the 1,000 by 4 because we had 4 teams that were going to make it, and offer 250 options on 325 schools. Some of the schools were $5 options. The likelihood of uh, I don't know, University of Maryland, Loyola making the Final Four is pretty slim. Okay. So it might be
Yeah.
$5. Well, one year, we ran this company for 4 years. One year, George Mason was a $5 option. George Mason beat UConn and went to the Final Four. So
I know where this
250
is
people,
going.
they went to the Final Four for $5 plus the face value of that ticket.
What? That's great.
Yeah, after the team made it. And so we had this great company. This was a great idea, great company. The failure of leadership. We took investments from CBS and from a mid-cap company on Wall Street for millions and millions of dollars, and we could have sold the company at a multiple of what we had invested in it, and it was turned down. And lack of leadership, lack of paying attention to the bottom line, and it was just a shame. And some other fault. The other thing is we didn't. I'll pull the messaging back in. We didn't have a concise, clear 8-year-old message that we could take to the world to understand
Mm,
what our options are. And if we could
right.
have come out with, we could have really won with better leadership at the very top. And so that's a great idea that still to this day has never made it. There is something today called Sports Illustrated tickets. I think that's
Okay.
the remnant of our company. Like they bought some. And so I used it like a couple of years ago and bought options and actually got there. Connecticut made it, and I went to the Final Four with those options. So it wasn't my company, but it still worked.
Man,
There's a
what a great.
yep, that you know could have really been something. And I think the failures wasn't vision. It was somewhat messaging. It was somewhat operational management and cost containment, and then just not having enough vision to know when to sell. You know, times you have literally, if someone's offering you 2 or 3 times your money, that might be it. That might be all you're going to get, but it's still a win. So don't be afraid to take the victory. And this guy didn't want the victory. He wanted a grand slam home run.
What role does relational leadership play for you in a bottom line driven business?
I think relations are earned. Okay. A relationship gets built up over time, over trust. Lots of promises are made at the beginning of a relationship. And we fight on our end really hard to try to keep those promises. I say under promise, over deliver, right? It's kind of a good adage. Make sure when you say something, you can deliver it. I don't believe in empty promises. I really don't. And I think people trust me more because I'll tend to undersell something versus oversell something, because the last thing I want is someone saying, listen, you promised me this and you didn't deliver. Goodbye. I'd rather have them say, hey, you didn't tell me how great this could be. Look at the things that are getting done. Over deliver is the best way to build a relationship and loyalty with clients, and same true with employees or the team that you're building. If people feel like they're part of a team and they're integral to the success of the mission, people will go run through walls, do whatever they need to do. I never have asked people to do things that I wasn't prepared to do myself. That's critical. Like the best running companies I've ever been a part of, even if I wasn't the leader of the company and I was someone in the team, when the leader is working harder than anybody else, when the leader has more ideas of how to move forward than anybody else, when the leader has his money at risk the same way as everybody else,
Right.
that's inspirational. People buy into that. I buy into that. I believe it. So
Yeah,
this is just years of seeing stuff.
I recently had a commander. We went out to the field and he was in a tent like everybody else and didn't complain, was without a shower for weeks on end. And because he was able to do it, everybody else looked at him and said, well, why am I complaining? The commander, who could be staying in a building with hot showers, is out here with us. It took the morale to a new level.
Totally agree. Totally lead by example. That's exactly what he did. You know what? Honestly, my father had a saying, and he had it on his wall in his office for years. Those that talk about people, right? That's the lowest level. People that talk about people are sort of your average people. People that talk about things are kind of the next level up. And the great people talk about ideas. And so
Yeah.
it's where you put your priorities, I think, was the whole point of the saying on the wall. It's if you prioritize the things that should be prioritized, like your values, right, in life, your friends, your family, your work, your community, your religion, whatever else is there and is important to you, those are values. And if you prioritize those and not prioritize things like, I could care less what car I drive, it doesn't mean anything to me. There are lots of people that are car aficionados. I don't take it away from them, but I happen to not be one of them. And so, yes, I want to live in a nice house. Yes, I want to live in a nice neighborhood. Yes, I want to live in a nice community. Yes, I want to be challenged at work. I want to enjoy my work. That was one rule I always have had in my whole career since age 23, when I started my first sports business. Be excited about going to work. Go to work with passion. You will get a lot more done. You can't dread going to work. The day you dread it is the day you change your job. You got to figure out something else to do. It's a mistake if you stay in it. But values are really important. And so, at the end of all of it, I think people will respect people with good values. So
Right.
that's leader.
Yeah. Peter, you're clearly someone who innovates from within. You just mentioned the saying from your father. What advice do you give leaders who are trying to transform stagnant industries from the inside out?
It's the hardest thing in the world to do. And you're going to hit, I think of it as like a journey, right? And there's no straight path between where you are and where you're trying to get. So I think always take a step forward. Unfortunately, you might be taking 3 steps to the right and bang against the wall. Okay. But that doesn't mean you didn't go forward. You still took a step forward. And I think of it as this long series of steps forward and steps sideways, but you're still moving forward to get to where you're going. It's not a straight path. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You can't be afraid of making mistakes. Fear is a it's like a dream killer. You can't be afraid to make mistakes. Everybody makes them. Don't worry about it. Make them and fix them and keep going. Every great business was built on mistakes. Don't even think twice about it. The greatest business I was ever in was the surgery center development business. I didn't create it. I was fortunate enough to be part of the team, but the first surgery centers that were built, there were probably 100 mistakes. The fifth ones probably had 20 mistakes. By the time they
Yeah.
did the surgery center, they weren't making mistakes. Maybe one. They were finding a new
Yeah.
mistake every few months, but make a quick correction, and then you've got a great platform to run. So, yeah, in an industry that's already set like multifamily, this is an old industry. It's a little harder to change behavior because a lot of it's set in its ways, right? These people have had success. It's not that these aren't unsuccessful businesses, these are successful businesses. So we're just trying to help them become even more successful. So I would say the thing we've learned over the last 6 years of doing this business is try to make your solution be an easy adoption by the user. The easier it is to use, the faster it's going to get adoption. If you make it complicated, you're making your life complicated. It's going to be a lot harder to get your business moving.
What a great leadership principle to live by. Don't make it complicated. Keep it simple. Make sure that you are pushing forward even through failure. Gosh, I love it. Here's my final question for you, Peter. If you could pass on one leadership habit or mindset that you have gained and experienced over your years to the next generation of business leaders, what would it be?
There's one, but I'll give you
Give me a
yes,
couple.
I'll give you a couple. Again, don't be afraid to fail, right? If you're a leader, lead by example. Don't be afraid to fail, and always be moving forward, right? Take that step forward. Inaction never solved any problems. It takes actual action to change things. So staying stagnant isn't changing anything. And if you're going to be a leader and you're going to build stuff, you have to just go forward. Give it your best thought, put your team together, come up with a plan, try to execute the plan. You'll find maybe 20% of it didn't work. Take that 20% and start working on it to improve it. And
Yeah.
all you're doing is refining the deal all the way down the line. But wake up every day passionate and go to work. People feed on passion. If you
Hmm.
bring passion to a job and you bring passion to a mission, the people around you are gonna feel that, and they're gonna join in.
That reminds me of one of the quotes that probably one of the best coaches that I ever had said one time. He said, Mo, I can't steer a parked car. You got to get moving. Even if it's not exactly where you want to go, you got to start moving. That way we can make corrections. But if you're not moving, I can't steer the car. And that made sense to me.
I just wrote it down because I love it.
Peter, where can my audience find you? How can they connect with you? How can they be a part of what you're doing at Rev?
Yeah, great. Thank you. You can go on our website, rev-leasing.com. If you want to really understand, what we're doing today, just request a demo. I mean, you can actually, you see what we're doing, experience what we're doing, which is, we're trying to uplift the leasing industry, put more value on that position. It's really a critical position within the team of property management and ownership. And so I think it's been overlooked and undervalued for a long time. And it'd be nice if the industry started to shift that way. That's our goal, is to get our mission is to get the industry to shift towards improving and valuing that leasing position. So I always say, here, I'll end it with a quote: invest in your leasing people. It will pay dividends.
Love it. People centric is always the best way to go. Things are going to go by the wayside, but it's the relationships that are really going to make the difference. For my listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and sign up for our newsletter, the Rising Tide newsletter. It's free. We give you all the good stuff every month. And so until next time, Peter, thanks a lot for coming on today.
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.